It's time for Mock Draft Tuesday here on Locked On Colts, guys. Let's get to it.
You are Locked On Colts, your daily Indianapolis Colts podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
You all for tuning in and making us your first listen today. This is your daily podcast covering your Indianapolis Colts, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. I'm Zach Hicks, as always, from horseshoehuddle.com, and also your favorite co-host here on Locked On Colts. Today I'm joined by Andrew Moore, which again, I got to throw up the display names. There we go. Andrew Moore, my colleague over there at Horseshoe Huddle. He's filling in for Jake Arthur. And, you know, whenever I have a guest fill in, I like to do some fun shows. I like to do some goofiness. And I know Mock Draft Monday sounds a lot better. We're recording this on Monday, but we're putting it up on Tuesday. But Mock Draft Tuesday, guys. We're going to do Mock Draft Tuesday here. Like what we did with Destin Adams, I think it was last week or 2 weeks ago. We're going to be using the Pro Football Focus Mock Draft Simulator. We're going to try to make it a little more realistic this time. I've cut down the randomness a little bit and gone away from the PFF board to hopefully get it so CJ Stroud is not there at 4 like it was last time. I'm not saying CJ Stroud falling to 4 is not going to happen, but I think it's fairly unlikely. Would you agree there, Andrew?
I would. Hey, if Carolina goes Bryce Young and CJ Stroud doesn't want to go to Houston, I mean, things could get interesting, but I think it's more than likely that Ohio State quarterback will not be available when the Colts are on the board.
Right, exactly. So if you guys are watching on YouTube, we have the stuff pulled up here on Pro Football Focus. You guys can follow along while we do this mock draft. You can watch and see which players are available. If you guys are listening on audio, I'll try to be as cohesive and explanatory with a lot of stuff and actually tell you guys like which guys are available and which guys we're considering at each pick. But for you guys following along here, again, audio or visual, we have the speed set a little bit slow. That way we can talk about the picks. We're going pretty much all public board because the PFF board is not my favorite.
Not great.
Not great. Drafter needs a little bit more or whatever. And then the randomness, I've cut it down just a tad. 7 rounds, obviously, we're going to be doing today. The first segment, we're going to be talking rounds 1, 2, and 3. And then the second segment, we're going to talk the rest of the draft there, 4 through 7. We will be trying to do trades today. So we'll see if that ends up being just an abject disaster for us. But we didn't do trades last time when we did this. So today we're going to try to do some trades. But Andrew, let's get into this.
Let's do it.
How do I? Okay, so Bryce. Okay. Bryce Young goes first. Okay, CJ Stroud goes second. Okay. We can live with that. That's fine. That's not too bad. We're good. So we're on the clock. Cardinals, again, for a mock draft simulator, they're probably going to take a player here, but in real life, they might shop this pick. So I think we're going to try to trade up to 3 here. I
would agree.
Sense.
Yeah, I think it makes sense. I think that, I mean, we've heard all the posturing from the two teams and with using the media. I know in all of our mock drafts, we have the Colts trading up to 3. In my personal mock draft, I have the Colts giving up the 3rd round pick from Washington and then a future 2nd round pick. Just kind of going off of the Rich, I think it's Rich Hill trade value chart. That kind of matches up for what the value of that 3rd pick would be. So I do think it's going to include the 3rd round pick this year for sure, and a future pick down the road.
Okay, you know what? For the sake of doing this, let's do that this time. So 4, number 79, and a round 2 next season. I know it seems like a pretty steep price to pay, but if there are other teams that are coming up, say Vegas is like, you know what, I want Will Levis or I want Anthony Richardson. I need to get to 3 ahead of Indy, and they're offering, a similar package to this. Indy's got to get close to matching that. And again, obviously the Cardinals have incentive to trade with the Colts because they're only going back 1 spot. They can still get a Will Anderson or someone like that. But I think offering this right here, while again, it is maybe a slight overpay, it is enough to go up and get that quarterback of the future. So we're getting a 479 and a 2024 second round pick for the third overall pick to the Arizona Cardinals. We're going to offer that trade. And I believe they accepted it.
They
yes,
did.
yes, they did.
And the thing is too, you keep that precious 2024 first round pick that the Colts can hang on to for next year.
Right. So here we are picking at number 3 now. We got Will Levis, we got Anthony Richardson. We're not going to go on too long talking about this because obviously, we've done so many shows on Will Levis versus Anthony Richardson. But to me, I think if you're trading up in the draft and you're making that move up and you're giving up future picks, you have to go for the highest upside in the entire class. And that's Anthony Richardson to me. Like, I feel like we have to go Anthony Richardson here. We won't talk too much on it, but Andrew, if you want to throw some quick words on who you would take with this pick.
I agree. I think it's Anthony Richardson all the way. If the Colts do trade up to 3, you bet on high-end traits. That's something Chris Ballard has done ever since he's been in Indy, and I don't think it's going to be any different with the quarterback position.
Right. Yeah, I think you just have to go up. Again, if you're staying at 4 and Will Levis is there, that's fine. Like, I get it. Like, Will Levis, but when you're moving up in the draft, you're betting on those high-end traits, betting on a young player coming into his own. So yeah, I think if you're going to make that move up like we just did, it has to be for a guy like Anthony Richardson or a guy like CJ Stroud or Bryce Young, whichever one of them falls. Again, I wouldn't mind it if they moved up and they took Will Levis, but I feel like with that, I would want to take the higher upside guy. So here we are, we're picking at 35. Kelly Ringo just went right before us. So one of the guys who I think the Colts might actually stay and take if he's there at 35. But because he just went, I think this is a prime spot to move down. And just for the sake of being quick with it, let's do Pittsburgh. So we'll do 49 and 80 for the Colts 35th pick. And we'll throw like a future. We'll throw a 5th back to them just to make it fit. All right. So 35 and 176 for 49 and 80, which is actually a very, very similar trade to the one that the Colts made last season when they moved back and took Alec Pierce in the middle of the second round instead of taking him a little bit higher. But Andrew, what do you think about this trade? You think this is one that makes sense? I mean, obviously, again, on draft day, it might be a little different. Like the Colts might get more for number 35, but I think in summation, I think getting a late second and a early to mid third or whatever it is for pick 35 makes a ton of sense if they end up moving 79.
I think so. I think that the Colts wouldn't want to move too far back into the second round because you still want to get a high quality player. And then once you start getting into 55 to 60 range, I think in this class, there is a bit of a drop off, even though it is deep at some positions. And then you really only are losing. You gained that third round pick when the Colts were originally supposed to pick at 79. Now they're just picking at 80. For moving up to grab Anthony Richardson. I think this is a fair trade and one that's very realistic for what we can see on day 2 of the draft.
Yep. So let's do this here. We're going to move back to number 49, pick up pick 80 as well. But we gave up one of those 5th round picks, which, you know what, that saves some time on this podcast. We have to be a little shorter on this podcast anyway. So that works out for everyone involved. Thank you, Steelers, for taking that pick off of our hands. So we're coming down to 49. Hendon Hooker went to the Falcons. That's interesting. Who is Detroit? Detroit takes Josh Downs right before us. I know some of you guys love Josh Downs. Nathaniel Dell, no chance. I'm not taking him that high.
I think there's a lot of good options here. Julius Brents, the Colts do need a cornerback. Obviously, that's a huge need. I know Cody Mauch right there would be a great pick. That's who I have the Colts taking in the second round. But I think and then you could think about wide receiver here, but I think wide receiver. There's a lot of wide receivers that I like that are going to be there in the third round. And you always hear Chris talk about here's the thing. The Colts have been so interested in cornerbacks, it seems, this draft cycle. But then Chris Ballard always talks about he's obsessed with the fronts and wants to build up front. So do you go with Cody Mauch? He'd be the day 1 starter at right guard? Or do you go with the local athletic cornerback and Julius Brents?
Yeah, I think for the sake of this one, because I think the last one we went Julius Brents. I think we did. So for the sake of this one, because it's down to those 2 guys, Cody Mauch is a guy that I know for a fact Indy is really high on. They really love him. He hits so many different metrics for them. You know, he's a guy who walked on to college, walked on at North Dakota State, He only had 2 walk-on offers in general, comes in as a tight end, transfers over to offensive tackle, and becomes a 4-time FCS champion, becomes a multiple-time first-team All-American, and he's the FCS Lineman of the Year, then goes to the Senior Bowl and switches positions again and looks perfectly fine doing so. So, yeah, I think Cody Mauch is a guy who they're going to be really high on. I think that they view him as a day one starter. So, yeah, let's go with Cody Mauch. And again, it says tackle here, but the Colts will be drafting him to play right guard. So Cody Mauch there to be the starting right guard. I like that. All the focus on offense and kind of build up that line for Anthony Richardson here.
Very athletic offensive lineman too. And when you look
Yes.
at all the offensive linemen that the Colts have drafted since Chris Ballard came to Indianapolis, most of them have very high relative athletic scores or RAS scores. So he fits right into that mold. Like you already talked about, he switched positions, a guy that was a walk-on and really proved that he could hang with the competition. Did it again at the Senior Bowl. So I think it's a great pick for Indianapolis.
Yep. And 2 of the last 3 offensive linemen that the Colts have taken in the draft have been former tight ends in Danny Pinter and Bernard Ryman. Cody Mauch would be another one just thrown in there. Now, I did just see a guy go who I think the Colts would really take in round 3, and that's Tyler Scott from Cincinnati at wide receiver. I do think the Colts would love him in round 3. Just unfortunately, he didn't make it there. Corey Trice is interesting here in round 3. I know people, Darius Rush is really interesting as well.
I'm a big Darius Rush guy. I think he is a big athletic corner. He's still a little bit raw, but he just has all the traits that Gus Bradley really loves in his cornerbacks. Big, long, physical, and another guy that switched positions. He played wide receiver not too long ago, switched over to the cornerback position and has really came on of late. So I think he's just scratching the surface and what he could be at the next level.
Yeah, I was looking to see if there were any wide receivers I would take over. And personally, I'd probably take Jonathan Mingo over him just because I'm a huge Jonathan Mingo fan. But outside of that, I like Trey Palmer. I like Jaden Reed. I like Parker Washington. But I would take Darius Rush here over those guys, especially if they're not bringing in a veteran as of right now to play outside corner. So, yeah, I like this. Let's go Darius Rush here, the former wide receiver, big-time corner, ran a 4.3 at the combine. That's the kind of upside that Chris Ballard and the Colts would bet on. And guys, coming up, we're going to talk about this day 3 guys that we're going to be looking at and day 3 picks that we could make here for the Colts. But first, grand slams, no hitters, and double plays are back, and there's no better place to get in on the MLB action than FanDuel, America's #1 sports book. That's because right now, new customers can step up to the plate with a no-sweat first bet up to $1,000. Just go to FanDuel.com/locked-on, place your first bet, and get up to $1,000 back in bonus bets if you don't win. So don't miss your chance to get a no-sweat first bet up to $1,000. When you join FanDuel today, just go to FanDuel.com/locked-on to sign up. FanDuel, official partner of the Major League Baseball. Whew, okay. FanDuel is just partners with everybody, so I just fumble through that one a little bit. But all right, so we've taken a corner, we've taken a right guard, and we've taken a quarterback. We're feeling pretty good on these team needs right here, Andrew. Like I'm feeling good. And right here, and I mean, I don't think Mingo would be there, so I just wouldn't.
I don't think so, but it would be a dream if the Colts were able to snag him in the 4th round. But I think he's going to be probably middle day 2. I would say early 3rd would be his floor.
Honestly, looking at these wide receivers, though, I mean, again, outside of Mingo, because I think Jonathan Mingo, again, is going to be going a lot higher than this. I think Trey Palmer is so much better than the rest of these guys here that I feel like we have to take. And I know we took him on the last one as well. Unless we want to wait around and maybe go Charlie Jones, which I like Charlie Jones a good bit. He's a good player.
I like Charlie Jones as well. I just don't. It's hard to see the Colts taking someone of his size. And I know they picked up Isaiah McKenzie, but I feel like the draft is just a different story. And I think I know a lot of these wide receivers aren't the biggest guys or the Chris Ballard type. I know Bryce Ford Wheaton kind of fits that as a big athletic wide receiver, but as far as pure skill, I would say outside of Jonathan Mingo, I would agree Trey Palmer is probably the guy that I'm most comfortable with and the guy that I think that could have the biggest impact on a Shane Steichen offense.
Yeah, and he's that perfect marriage between what Ballard wants and what Steichen wants. He's a big, explosive wide receiver, but he's also, a Senior Bowl guy, a guy who played well at the Senior Bowl, a guy who performed well in the Big Ten this past season. And he had a really weird pro day. Like, don't look at his pro day, guys, when we talk about how athletic this guy is, because he ran a 4.3 at the combine, but only jumped like 29 inches in his vertical. and had like a horrible 3-cone. So I don't know if he was hurt or something. I got to look into that a little bit more, but the tape tells me this guy is a burner. He's a great young player. And if he's available in round 4 like this, I think he's the type of player that fits Shane Steichen's offense and Chris Ballard's mindset. So let's go with Trey Palmer here, add some speed to the Colts wide receiver room. And I'm feeling good so far. I mean, we're adding a lot of talent at positions of need. We did lose one of our 5th-round picks in that trade up, so we will have to kind of make do a little bit. But as of right now, Andrew, I mean, I don't know. What positions should we try to look at in this next pick?
I think now you're looking at guys with those high-end athletic traits, the guys that the Colts always bet on day 3. You're looking for guys with those athletic traits. You're looking for guys that can contribute right special teams, maybe some of the guys that aren't nearly as refined, more raw, but they have all the tools that you think down the line they can probably put it together. I still think the Colts could double dip at offensive line. As Chris Ballard always says, you can never have enough pass rushers as well. So I think there's plenty of options on day 3 here in the 5th, 6th, and 7th rounds that the Colts could really be interested in.
Right. Like I would love Nick Saldiveri if he were here in round 5 in the actual draft, but I don't think he is. Marte Mapu, that's my dude right here. Like this, it's so interesting to see him listed at safety because this is a guy where he came in early in his college career, played linebacker, switched to nickel corner, and then switched to safety, and then back to nickel corner for Sacramento State. Really, really good player. Tore his bicep in training this offseason, so we didn't really get to see much of him. But that's interesting. Broderick Martin out of Western Kentucky, defensive tackle. He's a guy the Colts had in for a top 30 visit. I know they really like him. Daniel Scott, I think, is going to be a phenomenal special teamer in the NFL. Same with Jason Taylor II, another really good special teams guy there. But yeah, we could go a lot of different ways with this. We could double dip at quarterback. Stetson Bennett.
There we go. For all the Stetson Bennett stands in Colts Nation. Yeah, I mean, I would agree there with Saldiveri. I think he would be another guy that would probably start at right guard from day 1. He's a guy with position versatility, and I know the Colts are very high on him as well. But I'm looking at some of the pass rushers there, some of those interior guys like where was he out of? I think it's Western Kentucky. I know you just mentioned him.
Yeah, Broderick Martin. Yeah, the defensive tackle.
Broderick Martin. Yes, I think again, have an interior pass rusher like that. The Colts swung at 2 of those guys last year, and Eric Johnson and Curtis Brooks. Didn't really work out that great. I mean, Eric Johnson was on the roster, but he didn't really contribute much. Curtis Brooks was on the practice squad. I mean, Broderick Martin could be a little infusion of talent there on the interior of the defensive line.
Right. Yeah, I've heard that Broderick Martin's probably more of a round 6 to 7 guy, which again, Pro Football Focus is big board. It's not the most accurate one here, but Nick Saldiveri I think is a really good pick here because he's a guy who can play some tackle, play some guard. I mean, he's going to be your most valuable six lineman. Alongside of Danny Pinter as your backup center. So I do think that's a big need for the Colts there. And honestly, they just need more bodies at tackle and at corner. Like, honestly, our next pick, we might have to look at corner because they still need bodies at corner right now. Like, they need bodies everywhere.
Right. And when you're looking, I mean, taking Cody Mock in the 2nd round and then Saldiveri in the 5th, I mean, I'm pretty comfortable with that offensive line in Indy. I mean, you have Will Fries as a backup guard, Danny Pinter as a backup center, a Saldiveri who can play guard and tackle. Yeah, you've got some young guys there, but guys that can put it all together. I feel pretty confident in that offensive line group.
Yeah, I actually think this pick here is pretty easy considering that we still need cornerback depth. And I mean, this guy just is such a Chris Ballard corner, and he's a local guy. We got Corey Trice from Purdue, 6'3", 200 pounds. I think he ran a 4.47 at the combine, but he also jumped like 41 inches. Like
explosive athlete.
Super explosive. Yeah.
Yes. And a guy that can contribute on special teams right away. I think he would definitely be an asset for Brian Mason's group there. Yeah, I think this is a pretty easy pick. Corey Trice, the cornerback out of Purdue.
Yep, let's go with Corey Trice. There were a couple guys I like there. Kobe Turner from Wake Forest, I definitely like there in that position as well, defensive lineman. But Corey Trice, I think if he's there in round 5, you bet on that length, you bet on that athleticism, you bank on that size, because at least at the worst, you're going to get a Marvell Tell that's more aggressive. Like a bit of a more aggressive Marvell Tell. And look, you bet on the Marvell Tells of the draft every single year. That's the type that you bet on, and you just hope it hits.
Absolutely. And again, this is kind of what day 3 is all about, betting on those guys with high-end traits, because it's basically extra lottery tickets at this point. And you don't know which one of these guys are going to reach their ceiling, or which one of these guys are going to pull it all together. But it sure is a lot easier for those guys to reach that ceiling when they have all of the athletic ability right there in front of them, and the coaches just have to mold that. So yeah, you take athletic cornerbacks here. You take off the athletic defensive linemen here, because again, you can never have enough pass rushers, and I think the Colts still want to add to that group. And I think now that we're into round 7, the Colts have 2 picks in round 7. I think this could be a really good spot for that.
Yeah, I actually like linebacker in round 7 this year. And I think I still start my boy Marte Mapu. I think I have to go with my boy Marte Mapu here. That's my dude right there.
There at
Look at him.
safety. Oh my goodness, he made it.
He's not a safety. He's a linebacker. We're taking Marte.
Hey, that position
More information on him. I did write
versatility.
it. Right. I did write a 30 Days of Colts Fits on him. He's just, again, a guy who's a small school guy that has changed positions so many times, had a great Senior Bowl week playing at linebacker. Again, he could play some nickel, he could play some safety, he could play some linebacker, and he's a guy who's going to be just a dog on special teams. So I love Marte Bapu. I love him there. And now with this last pick, I think Broderick Martin makes the most sense there. I think we're rolling a little bit right here.
We're getting kind of lucky with these picks, but yeah, Broderick Martin, a guy that is just very. He's a small school guy, but he plays with such intensity. You know what I mean? And he can really get off the ball. He's a guy that I think Nate Ollie and this defensive line staff can really mold into who they want it to be, and then you just bet on him trying to reach that ceiling, and even if he's not a starter capable guy, you get quality depth with a guy like Broderick Martin.
Yeah, I've heard a lot of things like another like Grover Stewart type where he just needs to lose about 20 pounds or so, put on some good muscle, because you're going to have the strength, you're going to have the length, you're going to have the intensity. So yeah, I like Broderick Martin a lot. I think that's a good pick there for the Colts. Coming up, we're going to talk about the grade and talk about what we like about this draft here. But first, today's episode is brought to you by Ultimate Football GM. You've heard me talk about this mobile game app, and if you ever thought that you'd make a good GM, you got to give this game a try. It's not as easy as you might think to create a dynasty. You know, Jake's been fired a couple times. So far I haven't been fired, but we'll see. It could still happen for sure. With Ultimate Football GM, you're responsible for controlling the destiny of your franchise by hiring the right coaches and coordinators, managing all the finances, including negotiating player salaries and terms, and navigating your franchise through free agency, the draft, injuries, player personnel issues, and all the ups and downs of a season. All this in a challenging and realistic game world. Ultimate Football GM is completely free and playable online. Play on the go as you want and when you want to. Locked On Colts listeners get a 100% free boost to their franchise when using the promo code Locked On in all caps in the game store. That's Locked On in all caps. So make sure you check it out today. To download the game, just visit ultimate-gm.com or look it up on app stores. That's ultimate-gm.com. Ultimate Football GM. Start your dynasty today. All right, Andrew, let's see what Pro Football Focus on. They gave us an A+ for Anthony Richardson. I'm feeling good. Good.
I like that. That, and I think that's I think Colts fans would agree that's an A+ pick. Well, some of them would, but I think for the most part, you can bet on Anthony Richardson being a very good pick and someone that I think Colts fans would really like in the blue and white.
Yep. And then round 2, we traded back from 35, picked up 49 and 80, gave up 35 and a 5th round pick. We got Cody Mauch, who Pro Football Focus gave a B+ for. Honestly, I'm pumped if they get Cody Mauch there. I think he's a guy where day one, there might be some struggles. You know, he's not the most technically refined guy, but you're going to get so much intensity, so much power, so much athleticism at that position that if you can just grow his game throughout the season, like you're going to have a really, really good right guard next to Braden Smith at right tackle.
I'd agree. I think you're also not going to have Ryan Kelly and Braden Smith constantly worrying about who's in between. Let those guys focus on their game. Because Cody Mauch, there's going to be some rough patches. Every rookie has that, but you're excited about the upside. You're excited about the athletic ability, and you're excited about the toughness that he's going to bring to that offensive line. So I think he'll fit right in at that right guard spot.
Yep, Darius Rush from South Carolina, the corner. We took him at pick 80. Pro Football Focus did not love it. They gave us a D plus. I'm personally pretty high on Darius Rush. I don't think he's very much like a guy who on day one you're throwing him out there and being like, all right, you're great already. But he's a player I think he can grow into his role. You got that wide receiver background. He's great ball skills. And if you're getting him in those cover 3 drops that Gus Bradley asked of him, I think he's going to be a really good player. So Darius Rush, again, if they sign a veteran corner to go with this pick here, I'm pretty pumped if they get Rush in round 3.
Yeah, and again, there's still 17 days until round 1. Free agents, there's still a lot of high quality free agents out there, especially at corner. Shaquille Griffin's out there, Marcus Peters is out there. There's a lot of good veteran cornerbacks that I think the Colts would like. We'll have to see if any of them end up signing at Indy. But with Darius Rush, again, he's going to be a player that it's going to take some time. He's going to take his lumps out there. There's going to be missed coverages. There's going to be some lapses. But again, you're betting on that upside. And if you've watched his career at South Carolina, it seems like he's progressively gotten just better and better. So when he with NFL coaching and being in a scheme that really fits his talents, I think it'd be a very good pick.
Yep, and then running through these day 3 picks, Trey Palmer, wide receiver out of Nebraska. PFF gave us a C+ for that. I'm a little higher on that, but again, beggars can't be choosers there. When it goes to round 5, we got Nick Saldivari out of Old Dominion, the tackle/guard that can move in between. PFF gave us a B+. We got Corey Trice, cornerback from Purdue, also in the 5th round. Again, Pro Football Focus gives us a B+. And then our 2 7th-round picks, Pro Football Focus is pumped for us. Marte Mapu, they gave us an A+, and Broderick Martin, they gave us an A+ as well. So overall, PFF gave us an A+ draft. I would call this an A+ draft as well, just to tap myself on the back. But I like these day 3 picks. We got ourselves a small schooler, which Chris Ballard's going to go for. Actually, we got ourselves 2 small schoolers with Cody Malk as well. But we got an explosive receiver, versatile offensive lineman, and then we got some athletic upside defenders here at the very end. So overall, again, early on, offensive heavy draft. 2 tackles, a wide receiver, and a quarterback in the first 5 picks. But I think this is a draft that Colts fans and the Colts in general will be pretty happy with right here.
It's a very Chris Ballard draft. I mean, you address big positions of need with athletic, high upside guys at the beginning, and then as we get to the later rounds, athletic guys, high-end traits that can contribute on special teams right away as they continue to work on their game. So yeah, I feel like the Colts and Colts fans would be very ecstatic if the draft played out that way. A lot of good players with a lot of good talent would be coming to Indy.
Yep. So I think that's all we have for today, guys. Make sure you are following us on social medias at Zach Hicks 2, at Jake Arthur NFL, at Locked On Colts, and obviously at Andrew Moore NFL. You guys can follow us there on social medias. Also, subscribe to Locked On Colts podcast on YouTube or wherever you listen to your podcast. We'd also love your ratings, reviews, so please throw those our way. And thank you for making Locked On Colts your first listen every day. Now make your second listen Locked On NFL Scouting with the Draft Dudes. From free agency to the draft to salary cap management and more, join NFL experts Kyle Krabs and Joe Marino as they take you through what it's like to build a successful NFL franchise every Monday through Friday. Find Locked On NFL Scouting with the Draft Dudes wherever you get your podcasts and on YouTube, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. We'll see you guys tomorrow.